Here we go.
All righty. Hello, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. I'm joined today by my sister Joanne. How's everything going?
Going good. I wish my background was as cool as yours, though.
Yeah, yeah. Um, well, yeah. Obviously, this is the first season that we're doing without our brother. I think most people know that our brother transitioned back in January, and so I guess there was some thoughts on whether or not I was even going to continue to do the show, but I had a lot of people reach out to me and say, maybe we should do it, and so so here we are. Um, you know, we still going to keep it in the spirit of what he intended. I mean, we still going to hit you with facts, but it may look a little different. We may have Joanne is on today, our sister, so we probably going to have more people on to make guest appearances. And we're gonna talk about sports. So it's not just gonna be about politics. We can talk about sports. We can talk about lifestyle issues. So um, keeping in the spirit, but we still just gonna branch out a little more. So yeah, what you got?
What I got? Well, look, I'm just saying, I'm not as smart, but I got a lot of opinions. So
Hey, hey,
I think we're gonna have some good. I think we're gonna have some good conversation.
yeah, okay. All right. Any shout outs? Well, go ahead. Any shout outs? You got any shout outs?
Who, me?
Yeah,
Who should I shout out?
Jordan.
Oh man. Oh yeah, my daughter. Yeah. Yeah, my daughter runs track for UNC Charlotte. She's doing real well. It's you know how people, you have people who play football and their kids play football, and people play basketball, kids play basketball, and here I have a kid that does the exact same event that I did, and I'm like, did I
Uh,
make that happen? I'm not claiming it. I'm just saying she made those decisions on her own.
yeah.
And I got and shout out to my son who's he's financing his own life, so I have no control over his choices. And so he's going to be traversing through Europe and all this mess is going on in the world. But
Yeah.
fearless kids are fearless kids.
Yep. And I guess I got two shout outs. My daughter Camille, she's as you know, she graduated last year and she took her gap year to try to figure out what she wants to do. And so um, she's currently in Vermont, working at a spa center. She has some lovely accommodations. And then she's going to be transitioning to Brooklyn this summer, where she's going to be teaching elementary schools, my elementary school students. So she's transitioning to her adult life also. And then Olivia, her mother's an AKA, so Olivia got a chance to become an AKA, and I know her mother is proud of her. She's happy. So yeah, those are I think those are all the shout outs that I have.
I think I might
Yep.
be the only one left in the family that is not an AKA.
Yeah. Yeah. It runs in the family. Yeah. You're right. Pam. Yeah. Camry's an AKA. Yeah. Yep. And Camry, speaking of Camry, she's also working on her doctorate degree. So yeah, it's education runs in the family. Um,
Oh yeah.
yep. Yep. So, I mean, it's been a while since we've been on. I think, but there's a lot that's going on in the world. Um, at times, I call it's meant to be. This administration, the Trump administration, I think is chaos is the goal to throw so much stuff at the world, so much stuff on your TV that you just become what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, uh, uh,
Desensitized.
yes, 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 that's the word. Yes. So yeah, we're gonna talk about a couple of things today. We're gonna talk about the war in Iran. We're gonna talk about the Secretary of Defense. We're gonna talk about voting rights. So um, I think we're gonna start off with the Secretary of Defense who had a Pete Hegseth, Fox News host. That's what he's known for. Definitely not leaving one of the most premier organizations in the world. Um, and I think before we lead into that, we're going to talk about something that I saw a video that Hillary Clinton, and this was back in 2015, 2016, before she ran for president. Everything that's happening now, Hillary Clinton warned us. So it's only a surprise to people that we weren't paying attention.
Right,
So,
exactly.
so here we go.
He is not just unprepared, he is temperamentally unfit to hold an office that requires knowledge, stability, and immense responsibility. This is not someone who should ever have the nuclear codes, because it's not hard to imagine Donald Trump leading us into a war just because somebody got under his very thin skin. We cannot put the security of our children and grandchildren in Donald Trump's hands. We cannot let him roll the dice with America. This is a man who said that more countries should have nuclear weapons, including Saudi Arabia. This is someone who has threatened to abandon our allies in NATO, the countries that work with us to root out terrorists abroad before they strike us at home. He believes we can treat the U.S. economy like one of his casinos and default on our debts to the rest of the world, which would cause an economic catastrophe far worse than anything we experienced in 2008.
And here we are.
And here we are. I think you know what? I think that there's a lot of like feeling of like hyperbole, right? Is everyone being like, extra? Stuff is really, really not going to happen. And but I think what 2016 taught us, and I know what taught me, was like you got to believe people when they say what they're going to do,
Yeah.
and then here we are.
Yep. Yep. And so there are a couple of things So I played just a little bit of the Hillary Clinton interview, but there are a couple of things that Hillary Clinton said when she was running in 2016. The first thing was that the president that took office in 2016 would more than likely have the chance to appoint 2 to 3 Supreme Court judges. Okay,
Mm.
and I think Donald Trump, what was it, 4? Was it
He's,
was it
he's
3 or 4? Was it 3 or 4?
It's been four. Wait, hold
Yeah,
on. It's been at least three and
yeah,
possibly a fourth because they're talking
yeah,
about another retirement coming soon.
yeah. So Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and
Coney Barrett,
who?
Amy, the
Yeah,
woman,
Amy
Amy.
Amy Coney Barrett. Yes. Okay. Um, and so and I guess I want to back up real quick though, because I think a lot of people, and this is something that my brother did a really good job of talking about. Some people, when it comes to elections, they don't see past the top of the ticket. So, and what they don't understand, and what some people don't understand is that not only are they voting for president, they're voting for the cabinet members. Okay,
Yes.
they're voting for cabinet members. They're also voting for ambassadors, folks who set policy. All those things matter behind the scenes, and Supreme Court justices, like we just talked about. And so, what we've seen now compared to his first administration, he had people like to say, well, he had the adults were in the room. So that he had some of the folks who people believed in, like his chief of staff. So basically adults were in the room. At least he learned his lesson. I guess he would say he learned his lesson, um, because the administration he has in now, his cabinet members, uh, they're not the adults in the room. And one of the folks who I get frustrated with, I just can't look. I would say there are very few people in this world who I dislike. I would just say that right now. Very few people who I dislike, and I think maybe I take it a little personal because I served 20 years in the Air Force. I served 20 years in the Air Force. I served overseas and I served here. So I think when it comes to the Department of Veteran Affairs, I care a lot about, and I also care about the Department of Defense. And the fact that Pete Hegseth, who was a weekend host at Fox News, the fact that he sits in that chair, it bothers me. And we're going to talk a little about the Iran war, but um, and the reason I say that is because we are in a situation now with Iran and we have no offering. We have no way of saying how we're going to end this without going back to a deal, which I don't think they want to do, a deal that's going to be weaker than the deal that Obama's team brokered. But I talked enough about that.
Well, remember when I called you because I've followed the cabinet members, but I followed the things that he said more because it's so consequential,
Yes.
right? And how many people are impacted. So remember I called you, I was just like, it was about like the following of the orders and like the Geneva Conventions and the war crimes. I'm like,
Yes.
is that like really happening? Like, are these literally war crimes? Like, kind of explain that to me because you hear this and I'm like, is
Hmm.
this like really happening? And remember what you told me? You were like, yes, but like with the difference between Israel and the U.S. is going to be ultimate accountability, but
Hmm.
when we see some of the things that Pete Hesketh has said, it sounds like we're he's going to order people to commit war crimes, and I'm like I had Aunt say no, like explain this to me and
Hmm.
either calm me down or tell me just to say yeah this is where we are.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of things that. So, for instance, for example, they are still striking boats in the Caribbean, who they say are purportedly working for the cartels. Okay, no way of knowing this. Um, and so, from my understanding, it's been at least well, I don't want to give you a number, but it's been several boat strikes, and and the thing that's important is because, and I forget the name of the admiral. There was an admiral. Uh, Joanne, can you Google this while I'm talking? There was an
Okay.
admiral who resigned, and he oversee his area of responsibility was in the Caribbean. He resigned, and we didn't give a reason why. I'm not gonna say he resigned. He has to retire, and he didn't give a reason why. But I think that shortly after he resigned, that's when those strikes in the Caribbean, that's when those things started. So I think people
Admiral
are
Alvin
choosing to
Hoxley.
retire. What's his name?
Alvin Hoxley.
Yes,
Hoxley.
yes, yes. And so not only him, I mean, Pete Hegseth, he's fired probably I think 24 senior leaders. I mean, he fired the now we're currently using the Navy in the in Iran to help support the war, and the Secretary of the Navy was fired
Yes, immediately, like walk off
immediately.
site type of fighting.
Yes, he didn't even have a chance. He didn't even have a chance to pack. So, um, but so I think the key thing we're going to talk about here is going to be he did a testimony last week, and this is the first time that the administration is particularly in the Defense Department that they testified about what's going on in the in the Iran war, or they call it an excursion, or they call it whatever they want to call it. But I'll play this video, then we'll resume the conversation. And I will say that Mr. Smith did an excellent job of nailing this down and putting him in a corner where he couldn't, what do you call it, filibuster.
It is worth noting that every president prior to this one, including President Trump in his first term, also prevented Iran from getting a nuclear weapon without actually having to go to war in Iran. So we need to keep that in mind. But also, since the war started, Iran's nuclear arsenal has not been weakened in any way. And at the moment, in negotiations, what Iran is saying, basically pay us to open up the strait. That's their position, which is completely untenable. I agree. It's worth noting, of course, that the strait was open before the war started. Now we're negotiating to get back to status quo. And Iran's most recent offer is to say, we'll talk about nukes later. So what is the plan to actually turn all of this lethal kinetic action into an improvement in the nuclear situation? Because we haven't gotten there yet. Play it out for us. How does that happen? How does it actually lead to that result?
Well, I would take issue with the premise of the question that nothing was done. Operation Midnight Hammer was a very effective.
Well, I didn't say nothing was done. I said in this war.
Ultimately,
this war started.
well, this under this administration, unlike other administrations, which cut bad deals and pallets of cash with no ability to oversee whether Iran is actually pursuing a nuclear program.
Okay, I'm gonna stop right here. Okay, so the deal that Obama brokered, I think it's called the JPOCA. Uh, they allowed independent nuclear inspectors to inspect Iran's to see what they were doing with the you enriched uranium and all those other stockpiles. So they had inspectors that went in there. So I would say this is false.
So
Which is where
if we
we're
want
at.
to litigate JCPOA or the Iran deal, our view, the president's views, that was a very bad deal.
Okay.
That gave them a
That's
bunch
the
of money up
past. What's
front
the future?
to fund. You talked about negotiated deals. Allowed them to fund their proxies and spread Hamas and Hezbollah all around the region, build up nuclear capabilities.
Great. What are we going to do now?
President Trump has been clear-eyed, from the killing of Qasem Soleimani to the pulling out of the Iran deal to Midnight Hammer and now to this effort to recognize that you have to stare down this kind of enemy who's hell-bent on getting a nuclear weapon and get them to a point where they're at the table giving it up in a way that
So they
ensures
haven't.
never
And this is the part that I don't understand. I'm still not understanding why we. Well, let me rephrase that. I have a sneaking suspicion. But Joy, do you have a clear understanding of what the objectives were?
For Iran?
Yes.
Absolutely not. No, I mean, and the thing is, they've well, the stated objectives have been just to kill them. Like that's
Hmm.
literally what they've been talking about. But when it comes to why we actually went there and why there was the urgency to go to war with Iran, there's no idea. There's zero clarity
Yeah.
about what was trying to be done. Now we've seen this before, right?
Yeah.
Remember with the Iraq War, the goalposts kept changing about why we were there. But we knew why we went there, even if it was false. We know why we went there, and then what the objectives were. Continuing to change. Here, I have no idea why. Well, take that. We do know that was with Israel. There are other things that
Yes.
are kind of playing into that,
Yeah.
but the why and what we wanted to accomplish seemed like totally unconnected from U.S. interests.
Yep.
have it.
So they haven't broken yet. Okay, we haven't gotten there yet. For all of the
Well, their
lethal
nuclear
connect-
facilities have been obliterated. Underground, they're buried, and
Whoa,
we're
whoa, whoa,
watching
whoa,
them
whoa, 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 whoa,
24/7.
whoa, whoa, whoa.
So we know where
Whoa, whoa,
any
whoa, whoa,
nuclear material
Reclaiming
might
my
be.
time for
We're
just a
watching
quick
it.
second here. We had to start this war, you just said, 60 days ago, because the nuclear weapon was an imminent threat. Now you're saying that it was completely
They
obliterated?
had not given up their nuclear ambitions.
Okay. So the goalpost just moved right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mid
They said
sentence.
it mid-sentence. So they were an imminent threat. Um, and I don't know. When I think about imminent, it's like I look outside. There's they said it was supposed to rain today, so rain is imminent. It did rain. The forecast said it was going to rain, so I'm not sure what their definition of imminent is, but um, there are a whole lot of countries that um, have ambitions to have nuclear weapons. So do we preemptively strike them because they have the ambition? I don't know.
No, we have not.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
Hold on,
we haven't.
hold on for a
Okay, you
second.
finish it.
Let me
And they
finish
had a
this.
conventional shield of thousands
So
of missiles.
Operation
They're
Midnight
at the
Hammer
weakest
accomplished
moment.
nothing of substance. It
No, you're
left us
missing-
at
you're
exactly
missing
the
the
same
point.
place we were before. So
Their,
much so
their
that we had to
facilities
start
were
a
bombed
war.
and obliterated. Their ambitions continued, and they're building a conventional shield.
All right,
of
let me
missiles.
try again.
It's the North Korea strategy. You know this very well. The North
I
Korea
know.
strategy was use conventional missiles to prevent anybody from challenging them, so they could slow walk their way to a weapon. President Trump saw Iran at its weakest moment, took an action to ensure, in a way that only the United States of America could do with our Israeli partners,
And yet
to
they
ensure their
still haven't given
conventional
up the nuclear.
shield was
All right,
was
I
brought
got
to
one other
heel, which
question,
we've done.
if I could get to it.
And now so it appears that every other day there's a deal that's going to be made in 2 weeks.
The 2 week goalpost. That has been a standard for every piece of policy
Yes,
that
yes,
we've had. But
yeah,
the problem is, these things have been effective, and I use the air quotes, because there was some semblance of control over the people that were making the decisions.
Hmm.
Now, I really, either they were incredibly naive to think that the rest of the world was going to go along, and the rest of Europe was going to go along with what was happening. Because then you start to see like deeper fundamental misunderstandings of like, NATO's not helping us. Let's not, NATO is not supposed to help preemptive strikes.
Correct.
NATO is supposed to protect.
Correct.
Um, and then, bullying or trying to threaten other countries and thinking that uh, they're going to follow along with this because the stakes are much higher than throwing tariffs around and all, and people aren't going to put their soldiers in danger for no reason.
Correct. And Marco Rubio, right before this started, and I wish I would have pulled up the video, but Marco Rubio did a press gathering, and what he said was, he said the reason why, and I'm paraphrasing, the reason why we entered this war is because Israel thought that Iran was going to, hold on, let me add this to the broadcast. Hey, what's going on, Will? Israel thought that Iran um, was going to bomb them, and so basically, if Iran bombed Israel, then that means that we had to come in as the United States. But what we see is what Israel is doing, and this is, there are people who are paying attention. Um, we know all the destruction that happened in Gaza, uh, and now we see what's happening in the West Bank, and where Gaza isn't even. I mean, Hamas isn't even located in the West Bank, but Israel is still occupying that territory. But my point is that Israel is bombing Lebanon, southern Lebanon, and if you look at the satellite images, uh, they're bombing all those. They're trying to create a buffer zone where they're saying a safety zone, um, and all the destruction and all the villages. And we talk about what's considered a war crime. It is considered a war crime to target civilian infrastructure. And so we see them bombing apartment complexes. We see them bombing bridges. We see them bombing schools. I mean, even our country, the United States, we bombed um, we some people say kill, but we murdered uh 100 estimated 160 folks at a school that included
Mhm.
women and children, and so yeah, is it a war crime? I think that's a war crime. But why is Israel bombing the heck out of Lebanon? And look, I'm not an Israel sympathizer. I'm just gonna say that. I'm not an Iran sympathizer. I don't sympathize with Lebanon. I'm just putting it out there. But I am speaking truth to power. Is that if it's a war crime, we have to call it out.
Mhm.
That's my point.
Look, this is going to be interesting when we start to pivot into talking about
I know,
voting rights and
I know,
oversight and what
I
all
know,
that
I
is.
know, I know. But it's frustrating because what happens is, and I sometimes we had a plan, and we love that this plan is being derailed right now because I think this is important. And just I would just say, just on a human level, just a human level, when you see um there was a video of and look, when we were younger, we played with sticks, we played with rocks. I mean, we did all those things, and that's how we played. But they showed some Palestinian children. um they were playing. They had a makeshift stretcher with rocks on the stretcher, and that's what they were playing. So they were moving rocks on the stretcher, and just think about the psychology of that.
I went to my first time going to Europe. I went to London, and we went to the Tate Museum, and there was um, um, an exhibit by a photographer. His name is Don McCullum, and
Yes.
what he does is he's gone and taken human pictures of
Hmm.
conflicts, and that really changed me, right?
Hmm.
When you think about it, because it explains the conflict, and we look at conflicts like headlines, and then he has like, this is the conflict, and this is
Hmm.
actually pictures of what is happening to the people there, and I think that we are the closest that we've ever come to understanding what that feels like is
Hmm.
is 9/11. And so I think when people are very callously like, you know, you have to bomb them, you have to do that. Like you
Hmm.
imagine if right now Charlotte was being bombed, and I'm
Yeah.
in Raleigh, right? Or
Yeah.
imagine if Clayton was being bombed. Um,
Yes.
that I think people need to really absorb. And so when I
Correct.
remember that exhibit, and it really just kind of made me think about that part, more than I probably ever have. And I think the U.S., I think because of where we are geographically,
Correct.
has made us insulated from what that danger and fear
Hmm.
and death really looks like.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine? And so you mentioned about bombing and everything. You're right. And so they say that that Hamas, and I'll just use Hamas and Hezbollah in Lebanon, that they're uh taking suit in apartments, and they're in apartment complexes. And so because of that, that's the justification that they can blow up a whole neighborhood. They can kill 100 people because allegedly three are in the. So this is like you going to a movie theater and someone thinking that there are two terrorists in there, and so they blow up the whole movie theater. It doesn't make it doesn't psychologically, it just doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. And I don't care. I don't see how people can still look and see the destruction that took place in Gaza and now what's happening in southern Lebanon, and say that this is not genocidal, that this is not a war crime. And if you complain about it or if you take notice of it, then you're considered anti-Semitic. And hats off to the journalists that were still there, but there have been more journalists murdered
Yeah.
in this. Yeah, I mean, it's mind blowing once you look at the facts. It is mind
Yeah.
blowing. And so um, Benjamin Netanyahu, who is currently on trial for corruption. But as long as this conflict goes on, then that's a justification for him having his trial delayed. But the point I'm trying to make is that there have been several presidents down the line that Benjamin Netanyahu has tried to convince him to attack and bomb Iran, and it just happened that this administration was silly enough to follow suit. And now we're in a situation where I don't see a way out without us capitulating to what they want, what Iran wants. I don't see a way out.
And to be honest, I feel like the updates we get from Iran are a little bit more accurate than the updates that we get because they're conflicting. So I've watched the
Correct.
BBC, and
Oh,
so when
eh,
you watch the BBC, you get a really clear understanding of how this is looked at and talked
yeah.
about globally without the filter of propaganda and politics inserted in it.
And you said it. And look, I watch BBC, I watch Sky News, and I watch Al Jazeera English. And you're right. People will be surprised what they don't know. You're right. But you know what? We also found out that, and this is something that the Department of Defense and this is supposed to be the most transparent administration ever. But we found out that there was indeed more damage that took place in a lot of these bases.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's like extensive damage that's not being reported.
Well, there's a whole lot that's not being reported,
Yes,
especially when they changed the way that people had
yes,
access to, and
yes,
now you kind of see what real propaganda looks like. And
correct.
I think that there was a belief system, when it comes to like the overall rule of law, right? The respect for the
Yes,
rule of law and it's respecting norms. And I think there's a lot of assumptions that people had that norms were rules that people would follow, and they are not. They are followed or they're not. And I think this is a time where we have things that are not followed. So you know you have things that you can prove are
hmm
not true, questions that are not being answered, and you have people that are on the front lines. There's this one thing that's happening where those soldiers, I think they went into some area that was not protected and was supposed to be protected, and several of the soldiers died, and the
Yes,
survivors are coming out
yes,
conflicting, like saying, no, this is actually what happened. And so then that sends me into the deeper thought of, you fire these generals and you're firing people who disagree with you. So who's left making the decisions, like the real decisions about where these soldiers are going? And it makes you fearful, especially when you really don't know what's actually happening.
yep. And it appears we haven't learned. I think that what they thought was when they were bombing Iran, they thought that this would blow over a couple of days of bombing, and they thought that this would probably blow over. Uh, we haven't learned anything from Iraq. We haven't learned anything from Afghanistan. The folks in that region, I mean, Iran has been around 5,000 years. Oh, I think 4 or 5,000 years. Okay. The way that they view time and the way that we view time in the United States is totally different. It is totally different. Um, and they understand the political consequences of what's happening here in the United States, how that affects us economically. I mean, like you said, we were talking earlier, the gas tank doesn't lie. All right.
Look, I wish that I did not know what the Strait of Hormuz was.
Yes,
I
yes,
don't want to have known what it was.
yes,
I know way too much
yes,
about it now.
yes,
And every morning when I drive to work and
yes,
I look at the gas prices,
yeah,
because as a part of just my own, like,
yeah,
nothing new is happening. I turned off all my breaking news alerts.
yes,
So I go
yeah,
and I say the gas. I think the other
yeah,
day, today, and I got up and the gas was like 4.24. I'm like, well, dang, what happened? Who said what? And that's when I go and check to find out, what happened. And I think what I really think is, I do think there's an echo chamber that is surrounding certain people in administration, and they're not getting, one, accurate information. I think two, there's a level of ignorance about the real consequences of what was going to happen. I don't think that any of them understood what would happen when they closed the Strait of Hormuz and how it would impact global markets. That's why Spirit Airlines went out of business. And then also what's happening in Europe with their oil supply. I just don't think that they had any knowledge. It's the same thing with, you get mad because the German, someone from, German whatever said something that he disagreed with, and now we're pulling troops out of Germany because I think he believes that the troops are there to protect Germany
yeah.
versus
It's
the real reason why they're there. So that level of
correct.
like just not understanding, and then making decisions based off those things and not based
Yeah,
off a real deep understanding. The people who do are gone. Um, it leaves you in a place, a real uncomfortable place, because for all I know they really could decide to attack Cuba. Look, you said it. He's saying to go attack Cuba. I actually
yeah,
might.
yeah,
We might wake up one day and they've gone and attacked Cuba.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, you're right. You're right. And so Iran has the upper hand. I mean, but just thinking, and again, I'm just going to put this out there. I am not an Iran sympathizer. Okay, I view this when I view this, I view this in the context of understanding the history of how we got to where we are, and the history they just don't teach this in the United States. They don't. We are told that Iran is our enemy, but you really just have, and the administration said for 47 years that Iran has been killing Americans, and but you really have to go back to, uh, we preach democracy. We preach democracy. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to spread democracy to other regions. Okay, we tried to do that in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it did not happen. But the interesting thing is, and I quote my brother Malcolm X, he said that we want to preach democracy in other areas of the world when we don't even practice it here in our own country,
Right,
right?
right.
We don't even practice it in our own country, and that's a perfect segue into what we're going to talk about right now. And I think this is one of the bigger things, and And so folks think it affects. It's going to have an immediate effect. We talk about the Voting Rights Act. We know that the Supreme Court finally finished gutting what was left of the Voting Rights Act earlier this week. Well, 2 weeks ago, and the implication that goes along with that. There's this one young lady that I follow on TikTok, and she's probably, I would say, outside of my brother, who probably is if there's anything that I want to know in history, I would go to him. She
Oh
is
man.
probably yeah. She is probably she's probably one of the better folks who actually talks about history in a way that ordinary people can understand it. So we're gonna talk about voting rights, but I'm gonna go ahead and play this video real quick, and then we get into it. And I'm just gonna say right off the front, I understand her frustration because I'm frustrated too. I'm frustrated, and I can understand her frustration.
I want to start by saying I'm sorry that it took me this long to talk about this. The Supreme Court gutted what was left of the Voting Rights Act on April 29th, and I have been quiet about it. Honestly, it's just because I've been in my head. Like, this one was a lot. I felt like my brain broke, so I know I needed to take a minute to process before I came and shared my thoughts, So before anything else, thank you for being patient with me. So when people hear voter suppression, they think old history, right? But it wasn't. It was policy, wasn't it? Poll taxes, literacy tests, grandfather clauses, white-only primaries, and violence behind all of it, to make sure that it worked. In Louisiana, the state at the center of this ruling, Black voter registration dropped from 130,000 in 1896 to just over 1,300 in 1904. That didn't just happen. It was built that way. But the Voting Rights Act in 1965 made all of that illegal. Within 5 years, Black voter registration in the South nearly tripled. And then April 29th, 2026, the court ruled that to challenge a map for diluting Black votes, you now have to prove that the state meant to do it. Nobody's going to say that out loud. They're going to redraw the map and say it was about something else. Congress already knew that, though. And that's why they took that intent requirement out in 1982. But the court just put it back in. In 2013, the court got rid of federal oversight within 24 hours.
And I'm going to stop her. What she's talking about is there was a court decision, Shelby versus Holder. And really what that meant was in 1965, when the Voting Rights Act was passed, we knew that there were states like Louisiana, like Mississippi, like Alabama, some areas in Florida, and Texas. We knew that they have a history of racism to not allow Black folks to register. And so what the Voting Rights Act said that in these counties, in these areas, it's called pre-clearance, meaning that before they made any changes to voting rights, that they had to get approval. They had to get approval to be able to do that. So any changes, specifically in those areas, they had to be cleared by the Justice Department. And so Shelby versus Holder, that part was taken out, where all these areas no longer had to get pre-clearance. They can just do whatever they want now. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's the gist of having to understand what that meant and what the impact is now.
States passed laws that had already been blocked. In 2021, they weakened ballot access protections. And now this. Same law, same direction, just piece by piece. Now, 6 days after the ruling, Louisiana's Republican governor suspended the state's congressional primary mid-election to.
And people had already voted. So vote was already taking place.
42,000
Yes.
votes have been cast.
Yep.
Let the legislature redraw the map. Alabama called a special session to do the same thing. Tennessee called a special session. Mississippi has a special.
Tennessee had their special session today, and basically they split up the areas where there's a large concentration of African Americans in Memphis. They split that county up into 3 different districts. So if you can live in Memphis and your neighbor could be you're I'm not being funny, but this is what it means. They split up Memphis into 3 districts.
Session scheduled for May 20th, officially to redraw state Supreme Court districts, with Trump pushing to add congressional districts to the agenda. Florida passed new maps the same day the ruling came down. South Carolina is gearing up to follow. At least 15 House districts in the South are at immediate risk of being eliminated. The Congressional Black Caucus could lose between 15 and 20 members in a single redistricting cycle. Cleo Fields in Louisiana, Benny Thompson in Mississippi, Terry Sewell in Alabama. Black majority districts up and down the South. This is happening right now while you're watching this video. So here's what this actually does to your life, right? If you live in a state with a Black population big enough to matter politically, your district is about to get redrawn. Your vote is about to be diluted on purpose. Your representative may not be your representative for much longer. That means fewer Black voices in Congress. Fewer people in the room when laws about your health care gets written. Fewer people pushing back when the budget gets cut. Fewer people fighting for the funding that keeps your kids' school open. Fewer people protecting voting rights the next time they try to take more. And it's not just Congress. The same ruling reaches state legislatures, school boards, city councils, sheriffs, DAs, entry-level government, where someone Black may have had a chance of representing a Black community. That chance just got smaller. My grandma was born in 1927. That's not history to me. That's her lifetime. And no, this is not Miss May. This is Miss Alice. Her lifetime. One lifetime. One lifetime between a country where Black people couldn't vote and a country now making it harder again in ways that are harder to challenge. This is what people mean when they say things have changed. You know? Not one big moment, just smaller decisions that just keep stacking, right? And the people writing these laws and defending these maps are the same people asking for your vote in November. I gave you the playbook of what to look for when you're seeking which candidate to vote for. I'll pin it just to make sure you see it because it is so important. It is imperative that you stay aware, that you stay alert. And if you watch that video, you now know what to listen for. And you know what they're taking when you stop listening. Don't stop listening. Fuck.
I think going back to what you said, how this all originated, I think that there are types of voter suppression that that not that we were celebrating per se, but like, you see these long lines of people voting. That is voter suppression. Those are the
Correct.
things that they were allowed to do that they could not do before, the case that Aunt just mentioned. And so you were seeing situations where, okay, so you have to get a driver's license, and then they close the driver's license offices within 50 miles
Mhm.
of certain rural areas. And so all of those things are, were by design to suppress. Now, this is the bigger step because now they've pretty much diluted, any power that Black voters had in Jim Crow, in what was Jim Crow South, and now we see why.
Yep. It's frustrating. I mean, like I said, I'm not even gonna lie. I'm frustrated. Yeah. I mean, even here in North Carolina. I mean, so we are affected also in North Carolina. Um, but it just so happened that, and this is the way I think it's possible that what they're doing is going to backfire because what people are talking about now is gerrymandering. Okay. Um, Democrats in 2021 when they passed they put forth a bill that would end gerrymandering in all states. Okay, but the Republicans they didn't go for it. Um, the reason why we're here now is because President Trump talked to the governor, Governor Abbott in Texas, and he said, "Hey, I want you to find me 5 more seats." And so, without fail, they redistricted where it looks like, based on what the map is that that Republicans may pick up 5 seats. So California, in turn, did the same thing, but this is the difference. California let the voters decide. Virginia just redistricted, right? They redrew their districts, but before they did that, they let the people decide. I think if you're going to redistrict in a way that happened in Texas, California, Virginia, I think you should put it as a measure on the ballot and let people decide whether or not they want it. Let the voters decide whether or not they want it.
But what started to happen though is, and it's astounding how many states are um, controlled by one party, and then it becomes a bigger thing because what we've seen in North Carolina is when there was this, now that there's super majorities, especially in the state house, I don't think in the state senate yet, but I think one vote away,
Mm-hmm.
is that they put in place ways to make it so that they remain in power. And the issue that brings that all people don't understand is once you have people who no longer fear the vote, then you're really going to see what they're going to do,
Well,
right?
we see it now.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, like they when they are no longer accountable for anybody voting for them. You're
Mm-hmm.
seeing things as like, why are people making decisions that are literally bad for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the things they're doing with student loans, the things they're doing with the banking now that like allowing banks to charge you enormous fees
Mm-hmm.
to pull out all your bills before right when your check is about to post, so that
Mm-hmm.
everything bounces. And like all those things were protections that we had, and now um, those things are going away. And so I think the redistricting thing, the harder part about it is, or the harder part about what political power does, is then it works to just keep their power, and then
Correct.
it literally does not become about the people anymore. And so that's why you don't see a lot of concern about the gas prices. You don't see a lot
Mm-hmm.
of concern about um, the changes that are happening to student loans, or concern about the fact that why would you want to start putting medical debt back on people's credit reports?
Correct.
Like
Correct.
who does that
Correct.
benefit?
Yeah.
And it all benefits big business. And
Yeah.
so, but when you're no longer accountable for the vote, when people's votes don't actually matter, and I'm talking about in
Mm-hmm.
general,
Mm-hmm.
um, you'll see policies that are going to be bad for everybody, and that's what we're going to start to see more and more and more of.
Yeah. I mean, and the reality is that people who vote against their interests. So, a couple of things that I've been following is who knew that fertilizer that was going to be an issue with you know what I mean? Who knew that
Right.
right? And so now there's been talk about another bailout for farmers. So we call it a bailout for farmers, but when regular folks who need help, they need SNAP, they call it welfare. You know what I mean? So it's just a verbiage: bailout versus welfare.
You know what else something I found out about, and I was like, why is there such a and I'm not gonna say I'm not environmentalist. I care about the environment, but like there's
Yeah,
things I don't know deeply. You learn
yeah.
something. So I was like, why is there such a thing against the wind farms? Like, what exactly is so bad about them? And I never did any deep research about it. And then I read an article and I find out that um, these solar panels and these wind farms, they reduce the reliance on um, electricity, like the traditional way we get electricity, which means those
Yeah,
electric companies make
correct,
less money.
correct,
So I'm like, that's what it is. And so now the
correct.
government is paying people to stop doing
Mm-hmm.
something that will benefit the people.
Yep, yep.
So
That's what time it. And so yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to do a part two about this, but I just want to quickly something I thought about, um, because something that the young lady said is that how does this affect you? Okay, Um, you know, what we see now in all these rural areas, right? Even in North Carolina, right? Where you have to drive. Yes, yes, you're right, Lee. Yep, yep.
Yep.
Have you seen how many hospitals are closing in rural areas? Not just North Carolina, but I'm talking about in Kentucky. I'm talking about in all these resources. Uh, and look, we can drive down to Sampson County, right? And we drive down when we used to go to junior house. I see all these Trump signs, Trump flags, and they're living in the trailer. I'm not demeaning anybody that lives in the trailer. That's not my point. My point is that you're voting against your interests to where you get sick, and now you have to drive an hour away to go to the nearest emergency room. All of the so yes, and so this is one of the things that me and Junior used to talk about, and I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm just laughing because people are so ignorant. Is that people did not know that they were on Obamacare because they had a different name.
Oh, remember that story he had said? The guy
Yes,
who talked to him and he
yes,
was signing up for these services,
yes,
and at the same time was talking about like Obama and how bad Obama was. It
yeah, yep,
was like, well, you might as well walk away from this
yeah,
program. This is where it came from.
yes. And but the point I'm trying to make is that now there are, I think, Blue Cross and Blue Shield. There are insurance companies who are walking away from they're not going to offer their insurance on the market. Who is this going to disproportionately offend? We know that. We know who it's going to offend. The Department of Education, something that I read, and we'll have to come back to this, is that this is something that I didn't know existed. That they just reclassified what's considered professional degrees and
Oh yeah.
how much money that you can, there's a cap on how much money that you can apply for in student aid based on what department that you're, well, based on what major study that you're going to, area of study. I was like, how would you even think to do this? Who does this help?
And look in the cap that they have on even what they call professional degrees is less
Yeah,
than half. Now I got this. This does need to have part two because
yeah,
I have a theory about the connection between devaluing education, making education less accessible,
correct,
um, focusing on increasing the birth rate and how all of these things are connected for a future generation of workers that's going to be needed because when you think about it, these rich folks, their kids are still going to Yale and Princeton. They just
correct.
don't want other folks to. So
Yeah, yeah,
that does warrant a part two.
yeah.
But before go ahead because there's a different topic I want to pivot to before we wrap up.
Yeah, that's not what I want to talk about. I mean, and that's why I say it seems like every election we say this is the most important election in our lifetime, but there's no doubt about it. I think this upcoming midterm elections will be the most important election in our lifetime. I really believe that.
If it happens, and I
Yeah.
don't say that with
Yes.
any bit of hyperbole. Like
Yes.
the idea of that's illegal. You can't do this. You can't do that. That is thrown out the window. And
Yes.
so I do believe that we're going to be into some unprecedented times. And
Yeah.
one day when books are written about this, and this is
Oh yeah.
in textbooks or whatnot,
Yeah.
I would. It's going to be a
Yeah.
time, but like,
Yeah.
don't know where we are yet though. But um, so to end on a lighter note, I don't know if it's a
Yeah.
lighter or not, but remember when we were first talking about it, starting this back, um, when um, Hubert Davis got fired,
Yeah.
and we were just like, how do
Hmm.
we feel about them going outside the Tar Heel family
Yeah.
to go and hire a coach. And I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell you, as a Tar Heel, I feel some type of way about that. I do. I'm just like, who is this man? Like I don't know him. I've never heard of him. Where did he come from? And I was on campus when Dean retired,
Hmm.
um, and we knew who was up next. And we know that Matt Doherty was there because Roy wasn't ready to be up next. So,
Hmm.
and then we knew Roy was up next. How did we end up with this man?
Because Roy Williams didn't do a good job of developing coaches to take his
Uh,
place. That's basically what it means. If you look at what Mike Krzyzewski did, um, um, I can't think of his name. Uh,
John Shire.
John Shire. John Shire knew that he was going to be the coach in waiting. Okay, and it is not a and so you remember when I told you that there are very few people that I dislike in this world.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, Secretary of Defense is one of them, and Duke basketball as a staff, record label, and as a whole crew. I don't like Duke basketball. Okay, but
Yeah.
I will say that there has not been a drop off in the I'll say the level of the Duke way. There hasn't been a drop off because John Shire knew that he was going to be in waiting. Roy Williams, we had nobody, and I never thought that Hubert Davis was going to be the best coach for us anyway for North Carolina.
There, well, there's a reason why he wasn't a head coach. You know,
Correct.
there's a reason, and so I feel like there's a little piece of our there's a little piece that's missing. Like you're not. It's hard to be uh, connected to it because as bad as Matt Doherty was, that's an 8-20 season. I was talking to my niece Morgan, and I'm telling her stuff, and I was like, nah, we had an 8-20 season. And remember that game when we had to play Duke, and we were so bad, and I was like, this is going to be the worst game ever. And so what Matt Doherty did was cut the game in half, and so they would get the ball, and at the shot clock, he would just dribble for 15 seconds,
Yeah.
and then try to shoot, and then dribble for 15, and it worked. I mean, we didn't get blown out, but yeah, I just feel like there's a little bit of the mystique is gone, and so and that dude has no loyalty from the fans, so he better come
Who's
and
that?
win something. The new guy, I don't remember his name. Is it Malone?
Mike Malone. Yeah, he was the head
Yeah,
coach for the Denver Nuggets. So
yeah.
yeah, he's a good coach, and he's a good coach, and he's good at developing players. I
Well, we
look,
will.
look, I the landscape of college basketball has changed. Okay, um, I don't know who else was out there in the Carolina family. I don't know who else
Well,
was out there.
Wes Miller just went to UNC Charlotte, but he had just gotten fired.
Yeah, but
But
who
then
the
he
hell
took
is Wes
Marcus.
Miller? I
I
don't know.
know,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
He wasn't. Yeah, but he took Marcus Page with him, so
Yeah,
it'll be very interesting to see how they make. Because my daughter goes to UNC Charlotte, and Lord knows I
yeah,
try to follow their teams, but they're
yeah,
all just so terrible.
yeah.
So, so
We got
let's see what happens. But
we got King Rice out. King Rice is out there. Uh, who else?
they talk
Stackhouse
about
is out there.
didn't he like punch somebody? Like I think he did something that made it so that it was hard to. Did he? He
I
punched
don't know.
somebody.
I don't know.
He assaulted. What was he at Purdue or I forget
Who?
where he was. Jerry Stackhouse,
Jerry Stackhouse was at Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt, and I think he punched a kid or something. Something happened at Vanderbilt.
I don't know. I just know that he was the SEC Coach of the Year. I mean, to be Coach of the Year in the SEC, that's a big deal.
I
So
know. So I really think he punched somebody. There was something.
yeah. So yeah, I think the next episode we can talk about sports. It's MJ better than LeBron? I don't know. We'll see. We'll talk about it.
Yeah,
But
we'll
yeah,
have something to say.
yep. But look, we want to thank everybody for tuning in today. We're going to be coming back with something. We'll see what our next episodes are going to be. But I guess my parting note would be keep faith. Our ancestors paved the way. They paved the way. Um, and we just gotta keep pushing. We understand what we up against. We just have to keep pushing. Pick up your neighbor, pick up everybody, and just let them know. The easiest thing. Look, we talk about, hey, you going to the Chris Brown concert? Next time you do that, hey, say, hey, are you registered to vote? Check your voter registration. That's all it
Oh,
takes.
literally check your voter registration.
Yes.
Because well, you could just be taken off the rolls. Like
Correct.
yeah.
Correct. Correct. So that's all I got. You got any parting thoughts?
No. This has been a
Yeah.
great conversation, and
Yeah.
I'm sure the next couple of weeks, or when we hold the next, is going to give us a whole lot more stuff to talk about.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Y'all take care.